Good morning, my name is David Crystal. I've come here today humbly and with great hope and enthusiasm for newer, better, and brighter Miami Beach to officially announce my candidacy for the office of mayor of Miami Beach. Most of you who know me well know my local office was never my aspiration. Congress perhaps, certainly not mayor of Miami Beach. But there's something called civic duty. And when civic duty calls, I answer. And it's calling big time. Truth be told, I did approach two of my friends on the commission and urged them about 6 to 12 months ago to run against Matty Bauer. They both declined. Not because they didn't agree with me on the merits, they did, but because they were doing their own political calculus. It wasn't their best political interest. Well, my friends, with all due respect to my two unnamed friends in the commission, that's the type of political calculation and political expediency the American people have grown sick of. Miami Beach is burning financially. It's time to set the fire out now. When I speak to these politicians behind closed doors, it's almost as if there's some sardonic game going on. Like there's some back room where they're doing their horse trade. So now it's your turn to be mayor for 2 terms, and then it's Commissioner Jolie's turn, and then it's Commissioner Susie's turn for 2 terms, and then it's your turn, and then it's your turn, and then it's your turn, and then I have a grandson, he'll be old enough then it's his turn. I have questions to my fellow citizens. When is it our turn? When is it the people's turn? When you can demand take ownership of your city, demand accountability, demand representation for all the taxation you pay? I say on November 1st, it's our turn. My fellow citizens and friends, Miami Beach is going bankrupt. You're paying ever-increasing taxes on ever-decreasing property values, receiving ever-decreasing quantity and quality of services in return. The situation is untenable. We are getting poorer and poorer and poorer, while our public employees are getting richer and richer and richer. On a cash flow basis, we'll be bankrupt in 15 to 25 years, depending on how generous you want to be with your actuarial assumptions. On a net present value basis, we are bankrupt today. My opponent, Mayor Matty Bauer, cannot calculate net present value. Nor does she know what that is, nor does she understand the ramification of being bankrupt on a net present value basis. But it is serious, and you need to take it seriously when you vote on November 1st. If ever there were a time for a financial advisor and a financial analyst to be mayor of Miami Beach, this is the time. In my humble and professional opinion, we cannot afford 2 more years of Matty Bauer. That is precisely why I need to be your next mayor. I'm a public servant, not a politician. I believe in doing. I don't believe in talking. And I certainly don't believe in waiting. I'm not running against Matty Bauer so much to run against Matty Bauer the person, as I am running against Matty Bauer to run against the system. It's the system, first and foremost, that is dysfunctional. It is the system that is failing us. It's the system that promotes incompetence and breeds corruption. And it's this system to which Matty Bauer is wed that is taking money out of our pockets every single day. Make no mistake about it. One of my first jobs as mayor, where I so honored to be elected, is to reform the charter. Irrespective of that, my ultimate job as mayor is to employ fiscal restraints. Take all that money that's being wasted and put it back in your pockets where it belongs. Now, let us discuss the systemic failures that have brought us to this time and place before we get into the specific failures of Matty Bauer. The current situation we find ourselves in is a function of 2 long-term chickens that have come home to roost in a very narrow period of time, whereby we're on a small segment of one generation is unjustifiably called upon to pay for the sins, incompetence, and lack of planning of 2 successive generations. And it's just not right, and when I'm mayor, it will not stand. First, let me discuss the first chicken, which is what I call the systemic dysfunctionality chicken. This is the city of Miami Beach in 2011. We have a charter that is over 90 years old, that was written for the purpose of supporting a sleepy small town of 10,000 residents. All these buildings you see around here were not there. All the issues we face today were not there. All the caucuses like this one were not there. The city has grown exponentially in the last 9 years, but the charter has done anything but catch up. What does the charter do? The charter calls for the mayor to be paid $10,000 a year, and the commissioner $6,000 a year, which I'm sure was a decent livable wage back in the 1920s and 1915. And he's certainly not livable wage now. The government was set up to be a part-time government, whereupon the mayor and the commissioners would rely on boards and committees, much as exists today, to give them the information they need and to make the right decisions. The problem is we've grown exponentially. This is no longer a small town. We can no longer afford a part-time government. We have to ask ourselves, what type of candidates do we attract when we pay the mayor of Miami Beach $10,000 a year and the commissioner $6,000? There are three possibilities. Retirees who are living off their pensions, who may or may not be savvy enough for the job. The second is ideological individuals such as myself, who are willing to sacrifice for the greater good. But the third, most likely, and I'm sad to say perhaps in the last 50 years most common, are corrupt individuals who say to themselves, well, I'll make $10,000 above the table, but I'll make $200,000 below the table, having my skids greased by corrupt contractors and the like. This whole system breeds corruption. It breeds political inertia. It has to change. The second chicken is coming home to roost. It has come home to roost. It's what I call the perpetual soft corruption chicken. What do I mean by that? We all know, and this is our fault, that we live in a town where only 8 to 12% of our citizens regularly vote in local elections. The unions here are exponentially more powerful than they are in other cities. Union endorsements in total can easily yield a candidate 1,000 to 2,000 votes. Most elections are decided by far less than 2,000, often by far less than 1,000 votes. So typically the political calculus is as such. If I get the union endorsements, I get elected. Guess what? They get the union endorsements, they get elected. Now it's time to pay the piper. Our employees are, if not the most, highly compensated in the state of Florida, certainly amongst the most free, and probably on a per capita basis, given the small number of residents, probably on a per capita basis, the most highly compensated employees in the state of Florida, on the front end and certainly on the back end, when you factor in the pension benefits. I call your attention to the handout I gave you, to the very last few pages. This is what your employees are being paid, base salary only, not including overtime, not including however you would value their other benefits. When you account for what some may say use, what some may say abuse of overtime, 30% of our public employees make over $100,000 a year. 50% of our police officers, after use or abuse of overtime, make over $100,000 a year. Wouldn't you like to make that much money? I certainly would. To put it in more stark detail, given this horrific economy we live in, and the home prices and the valuations that have plummeted, given what we pay our employees, our average employee can buy a new home every single year, and most of our citizens can't even afford the home they live in currently. That's not right, and when I'm mayor, it will not stand. Let me make one thing abundantly clear. I am not anti-public employee. I'm not even technically anti-union members. Unionists maybe, not union members. I'm not anti-healthy pensions. I'm not anti-good compensation. What I am anti is people getting paid 2 to 3 times the market rate when we're suffering. We are the boss. We own this shop. We work 7 days a week. Our taxes is what pays our employees. Who in their right mind would run a business 7 days a week, bust their butt, to make $50,000 or $60,000 at the end of the year, and have each of the 5 employees making $200,000? It makes no sense. Miami Beach is backwards. We need to correct it, and we need to correct it now. Let me give you another example of how the city of Miami Beach is wasting your money and insulting your intelligence at the same time. This is an article, Making Dollars and Cents, put out by Miami Beach Magazine. This was in the winter edition, winter/New Year edition. Your taxpayers' dollars pay for this article. This article gives the reader the false impression that everything is rosy in the city of Miami Beach. We are on solid financial ground. I have never seen a more clever way of lying with statistics than this right here. What did they do? They quote Moody bond ratings on revenue bonds that happen to be AA2 and say, well listen, if Moody rates our bonds AA2, we must be in superb financial condition. You may not be a financial advisor, I am, I know better. Those are revenue bonds. And we have the money to pay them, and they mature in less than 5 years. I'm not saying we're going bankrupt in 5 years, I'm saying we're going bankrupt in 15 to 20 years. Nowhere here in this article does it mention our financial condition in 15, 20, 25, 30 years. Because of what Matty Bauer and certain others have done, or more importantly have not done, we are on a direct crash course in bankruptcy in 15 to 25 years, guaranteed. Probably 18 in my estimation.